Joining me now on this special broadcast from Ukraine is Yevhenia Kravchuk, a Ukrainian member of parliament and deputy chair of the Committee on Humanitarian and International Policy. Madam Kravchuk, how do you look at Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Ukraine and his interaction with President Zelenskyy?
Thank you for having me on your show, and greetings to all people of India. We do see this visit as historical. It's the first visit of Prime Minister of India to the modern independent Ukraine in 33 years. Tomorrow, and it's a very, very special time. Tomorrow we celebrate the Independence Day. President Zelenskyy and Prime Minister Modi had one-on-one conversation, a quite long one, but also with key advisors and ministers. We expect more news to come out on joint statement, but also some treaties, some documents that will be signed between the governments and some plans to be made. Of course, we're happy to hear that India is ready to play a bigger role in this peace, finding a peaceful solution to this war of aggression that Russia started on Ukraine. We are in war, in fact, for 10 years, since 2014 and the annexation of Crimea and the start of the war in Donbass. And of course, we are almost, it's 30-year full-scale invasion.
If we were to talk about the current situation, right now the two sides have exchanged their opinion and their views on what's happening in Kursk, what's happening in Donetsk, the military situation. But the effort was to have the conversation on rebuilding of Ukraine, an MOU on agriculture cooperation, people-to-people cooperation. Do you think that India is walking the talk on saying that it's for Russia and Ukraine to find common ground for peace, and India is willing to offer whatever assistance is required?
By the way, we're also thankful for the humanitarian assistance. Probably, such a great big country that is India, the biggest democracy, could do more. And we have an Indian diaspora here, and they met today with Prime Minister Modi. And we do expect that more students could come to Ukraine and study in our universities. We have a very long tradition of having Indian students coming to Ukraine and being part of our society, and we welcome them back. Of course, the topic of reconstruction is very important. That we're struggling to have access to frozen Russian assets. It's about $300 billion of dollars that are stored in different European banks in Europe. And we do believe that this money could be used for the reconstruction. And of course, the economical cooperation should deepen between two countries. And very symbolically, that the visit started was this museum where both President Zelenskyy and Prime Minister Modi saw what harm was done to children. We have more than 500 children that were killed. And I think that Prime Minister Modi felt at least part of this pain that, our families are feeling.
Okay. Now, do you now think that there is better understanding that India and Ukraine have about each other's position? Even when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, he expressed sorrow at the loss of children, loss of lives of children, and he said that India is open to offer whatever assistance India can offer in the reconstruction of Ukraine. There's agriculture cooperation, there's an MOU on agriculture, there's an MOU on culture, there's forward movement of talks on defense and trade. Does that help Ukraine once again get back on its feet, especially when there's increased cooperation even in pharmaceuticals, Indian pharmaceuticals playing a bigger role here in Ukraine?
Of course, it's always good when these talks are person to person during the visits, and I really hope that all of these plans that were made today and the documents signed will be fulfilled in mutual cooperation projects, which would be beneficial to both countries. And regarding the visit of Prime Minister Modi to Russia, well, I think Putin, when he knew about the attack, obviously, right? So he sort of like set up Prime Minister Modi that he was in Moscow because the visit was planned and the attack, obviously, is being planned to have this bad press for Prime Minister Modi. Because everyone was wondering how. There was just children's hospital hit, and it's the visit in the same days. And it's very good that Prime Minister Modi reacted right away, being in Moscow, saying that he feels sorry to those who lost their lives in this brutal attack. And that was attack by Russian missile direct hit into the hospital. I remember these days, and
if we were yes. Madam, if we were to talk about the road ahead, if I may, the road ahead, how does peace get restored in this region? Because war is costing lives both on the Ukrainian side and on the Russian side. Of course, it is for Ukraine and Russia to decide on the road ahead. India is willing to assist. In your appreciation, what is that role of assistance that India can play at this point of time, especially after Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited both Moscow and Kyiv?
Well, first of all, it's very important that during the press conference, during the joint statements, they mentioned the UN Charter. And the rules of these UN charters mean that one country cannot decide the borders, cannot occupy another country. And Ukraine has not started this war. It was started by Russia because they want part of our land and part of our people. So if we do agree, and it looks like that we do agree that UN Charter should be supported and put up on the table, then it would be extremely important that India will be in the process of organizing, and participating in the second peace summit. I know that India has participated in a few working groups on different topics. Indian representative was in Switzerland for the first time. It did not sign the communiqué, but could be, more active for organizing a second summit and bringing Russia to the table, but with common understanding that Russia cannot invade any countries, including Ukraine.
Okay. But the fact remains is now, will there be forward movement on the road to peace, which remains the biggest issue in this region? And we'll be tracking that story very, very closely. Madam, for joining me here on India Today, many thanks.
Thanks.
So the situation right now is that India is moving forward on multiple fronts. India is moving forward to ensure that India-Ukraine ties get even better. The 4 MOUs that have been signed, that will be critical, because agriculture is one area where both countries want to cooperate, and this is for the benefit not just of Russia, or not just of Ukraine and India, but also the developing countries in the region, the global south. That becomes extremely important. The MOU on cultural development, the MOU that's been signed on the reconstruction of Ukraine. India has made a big offer to Ukraine, whether it's agriculture or industry or infrastructure development. India has offered all assistance. Now it's up to Ukraine to take up that assistance, whether it's required with Indian help or just with Indian funds.